Teams, one golf course, and 3 days of all-out battle for the glory, the honor, and the pure joy of victory. This is the story of the 1999 Ryder Cup. From the Brookline Country Club in Brookline, Massachusetts, the 33rd Ryder Cup matches. I'm Bill McAtee, along with six-time European Ryder Cup team member Peter Osterhaus. Welcome to one of the cradles of American golf, the Country Club, a ruggedly beautiful layout that dates to the 1800s, yet packs a challenge for today's best players.
This is a course whose holes twist and tumble en route to small and closely bunkered greens. 13 of the holes are par fours, most of them long and unrelenting. But there's also the sixth, just 310 yards, and it will certainly tempt the longer hitters to drive the green. This is a superb match play golf course, and now it plays host to the ultimate match play event.
The first 2 days of foursome and four-ball matches are worth 16 points, while the last 12 points come from the dozen singles matches on Sunday. Teams from each side of the Atlantic have competed for the Ryder Cup since 1927, but in recent times the competition has been especially intense. 2 years ago at Valderrama in Spain, Bernhard Langer secured the point that enabled Europe to retain for 2 more years the cup they'd won in 1995. It was an enormous victory for the European team led by Colin Montgomerie, and a great personal victory for the man who had captained them, Seve Ballesteros, a heroic veteran of 8 Ryder Cups. The Europeans need only 14 points to retain the cup, while the Americans need 14.5 to win it back. The festivities began on Wednesday with the traditional opening ceremonies. Captains Mark James and Ben Crenshaw led the procession of players in the late afternoon sunshine as an enthusiastic crowd welcomed both sides to Brookline.
Promised to be quite a contest, with US team led by world number 1 Tiger Woods and Europe headed by 6-time Order of Merit winner Colin Montgomerie. World number 2 David Duval bolstered the American side, while the 19-year-old Spaniard Sergio Garcia became the youngest Ryder Cupper in history. The European team arrived in style, 3 hours 11 minutes on Concord from London, bringing with them the lovely trophy that is the focus of it all. For Colin Montgomerie, this was Ryder Cup number 5. And his team would certainly be looking to him for leadership on course. Masters champion Jose Maria Olazabal knows that no amount of experience can fully prepare a player for the Ryder Cup.
Whenever you stand on the first tee, you won't feel that thing that you feel at that moment in any other turn. There is pressure, there is emotion, there is fear, tension, everything together.
Lee Westwood's experiences at Valderrama taught him that both teams have an equal chance to win.
So anytime you're the underdogs and you're not expected to win, it's always a lot easier. You know, the Americans always have the pressure of being favourites. I don't really think you can call it any team favourites in the Ryder Cup now. You know, both teams are so evenly matched that, like I said, it goes down to one putt a lot of the time.
Yes, Papanovic is as comfortable on American soil as he is on the European team. Paul Lawrie would be drawing strength from the positive memories of Carnoustie. As indeed would Jean van der Velde, at least for 71 of those 72 holes. Darren Clarke shot a round of 60 in the European Open at the K Club, which will host the Ryder Cup in 2005. 3-time Walker Cup team member Padraig Harrington finished second in each of his last 2 events to earn a spot on the European team.
just absolutely over the moon with excitement, joy. But then, you know, it dawned on me that, you know, no point in being on the Ryder Cup team if you don't perform in the actual event. So, you know, I'm not. The high isn't making the team. The high is playing on a winning team, I think.
One of the two captains' picks, Scotland's Andrew Coltott, will be playing in his first Ryder Cup. As will Swedish star Jarmo Sandelin, enjoying the best season of his career. Miguel Angel Jimenez served as Ballesteros' assistant captain at Valderrama. While Sergio Garcia, despite his tender age, already has a victory on the European Tour and gave Tiger Woods a fight to the finish in the PGA Championship. Who can forget the fearless shot he played at Medina's 16th hole, or the eagerness he showed in determining its outcome? Team USA included 10 of the top 16 players in the world, led by Tiger Woods with 6 victories in 1999, including the PGA Championship, where he stared down Sergio and the strongest field of the year to win his second major professional title at age 23. David Duval came to Brookline with 4 PGA victories in 1999. And Payne Stewart arrived with the US Open title and a burning desire.
It's a passion with me being on the Ryder Cup team. I've been on 4 teams. I haven't been on the last 2 teams. And even though in my mind and in my heart I felt that I might have been a legitimate pick, captain's pick, I didn't play well enough to get myself on the team. And I knew the only way I could be assured of being on the team this year is to play my way onto the team.
Last year's Masters and British Open champion Mark O'Meara added experience to the team, as did Davis Love. And both of these veterans were hungry for a victory.
I think this team wants to make up for what the last 2 teams have missed out on, is that celebration at the end, and a happy captain. You know, the last 2 captains, we feel sorry that we didn't win for them, for the country.
Shut out at Valderrama, Justin Leonard was eager to play his part. As was Phil Mickelson, a member of the last 2 teams. Jim Furyk has shown he knows how to handle the toughest golf courses. And Jeff Maggott proved his mettle when he won the Tour's Match Play Championship in late February. Meanwhile, at age 41, Hal Sutton was playing some of the best golf of his career. Captain Crenshaw liked Tom Lehman for his competitive fire. And he chose Steve Pate because, quote, he'd go through a wall for an American victory.
Of course, the responsibility for mixing and managing these thoroughbreds belonged to the 2 captains, Mark James and Ben Crenshaw, who had spent much of the last 2 years preparing for this week. Captain James knew his men lacked the experience of the American team, but that didn't concern him.
We'll have a young side, and they'll have less Ryder Cup experience than a normal side, but that doesn't worry me. I've actually always said that I think experience is overrated. What counts is being able to perform and play your normal game under severe pressure, and I think we'll have a team capable of that.
There were plenty of pressure players on the U.S. as well. In fact, Crenshaw's biggest challenge was not individual talent, but finding the foursome and 4-ball combinations that would click.
This is one of the beauties about and the difficulties about trying to put together teams, because there have been successful teams in the past who did not complement each other, but either from a personality or golf-wise standpoint, or you put someone, you know, probably the knee-jerk reaction would be to put 2 players out there who play exactly the same way from a golf standpoint. So you try to assess all 12 of your players and their abilities and go from there.
These were 2 men with divergent personalities, the wry, smiling Englishman and the intensely emotional Texan. But they were focused on the very same goal, and now their shared moment of truth had arrived.
The referee for this match is Mr. Bill Clark. First on the tee, representing Europe, Paul Laurie.
Pressure doesn't get much more intense than the first shot at a Ryder Cup.
Come on.
Poor Laurie's drive wasn't his best, but he was clearly delighted to have it behind him.
Representing the United States of America, Phil Mickelson.
Well, the butterflies were clearly at work on the American side as well. And so began the 33rd Ryder Cup matches. The opening match pitted Laurie and Montgomery against Mickelson and Duval. In match 2, Parnevik and Garcia took on Lehman and Woods. Next came Harrington and Jimenez against Love and Stewart. And in the anchor match, it was Westwood and Clark against Maggard and Sutton. Friday was a spectacular day for golf, and it produced some equally spectacular shot making.
Beginning at the first hole, Tiger Woods had missed the green with the second. Downhill chip. In the hole indeed. No player was more anxious to be on this team than Tom Lehman. And with that opening salvo, he showed the crowd, his opponents, and his partner that he was ready to play.
A week before the matches, Davis Love was on the disabled list, battling a shoulder ailment. But if this approach shot at number 3 was any indication, he was experiencing no discomfort. The only pain in Davis's life was Payne Stewart, his partner, who rolled home this 6-footer to take the Americans one up.
At the 6th hole, for most mortals, this kind of situation a problem. But not for Phil Mickelson. It's an opportunity. That was the second shot for the Mickelson-Duval team on this short par 4, and it gave the Americans a birdie and a one-up lead on Montgomery and Laurie after 6 holes. Moments later at the same hole, Sergio Garcia played a beautiful chip shot to get a hole back from the Lehman-Woods twosome. Back at the short par 4 fourth, Lee Westwood. This birdie putt put Clark and Westwood 2 up.
So in the early stages of the foursomes, all square in match 1, the Americans had the lead in matches 2 and 3, and it was Europe in command in the anchor match.
On the tee of the tricky par 3 7th, Europe 1 down. The 19-year-old Garcia helping Parnevik. Difficult back right pin placement.
Come on, give it a kick.
And a superb shot. That led to a birdie, and the match was all square. Back at the 6th, Jimenez faced the game's toughest shot, the long bunker shot. But he made it look easy. The Europeans were 2 down at this point. But when Harrington rolled this one home, the deficit was just 1.
Meanwhile, Jeff Maggard and Hal Sutton were 1 down through 6 holes, but Maggard was striking the ball well, very well. And his partner had been rolling the ball well all year long. Chalk up that hole for the Americans. 3 holes later, Sutton appeared to be in trouble until he hit this shot to keep the U.S. side ahead in the match.
Meanwhile, up ahead at the 13th, Montgomery Laurie faced a tough up and down to retain their 2-hole advantage. A good shot from Laurie. Still left Monty. A nervy 10-footer. But Europe's number 1 was up to that challenge. One hole later, he had another challenge, but his captain had confidence in him.
Colin, of course, will be the focus of our Ryder Cup team. It's pretty obvious I'll be expecting him to play 5 times. You know, he is without doubt our best player, and you know, he is the sort of he is our strongest man, and you know, I'll be looking to build the team around him and a couple of other guys, basically.
No one could question that judgment, and no one could question the talent and tenacity of Colin Montgomerie. On his broad shoulders, Europe's confidence is well placed. Now the American side needed a putt to have the hole. That put Mickelson and Duval 3 down. And so as the foursomes moved into the home stretch, Europe held leads in 3 of the 4 matches. With only the last match in American control. 3 holes up with 3 to play, Dormy, the 2 Scots, needed a good tee shot to sew up their match. And Montgomerie gave it to them. His play on this morning had been close to perfection. For Mickelson and Duval, this was the last realistic chance to extend the match. And Mickelson almost made it happen. Laurie had this one for birdie, but all his team needed was a par.
Monty and his young countrymen had meshed beautifully on this morning, and the Americans had failed to keep pace.
And so the first point in the 33rd Ryder Cup matches went to the Europeans. Putting had been the key all morning for Europe, and it was once again at 14, when Parnevik ran home this birdie to stay 1 up. 3 holes later, a fine drive by Jesper gave Sergio a chance to attack, and he punched a low draw into the quartering wind.
And for a 19-year-old, he has all the shots. What a great partnership this twosome was. Using the slope, using the wind, a chance for a birdie. Lehman had also given Tiger a good opportunity to attack. First, it appeared to be too much club. Like this very slopey 17th green had the final say. Lehman, uphill chance for a birdie, but it wasn't to be. This then to win the match for Europe. So the unlikely pair, the eccentric Swede and the ebullient young Spaniard, proved to be a marriage made in Ryder Cup heaven as they defeated 2 of America's fiercest competitors. And so the score was suddenly 2-0 to Europe. In the anchor match, Sutton and Maggott had moved to 2 up with 3 holes to play. And this tee shot by Howell would just about slam the door on Westwood and Clark. With this 3-footer by Maggott, Team USA secured its first point of the match. These 2 veterans had combined to shoot 4 under par for 16 holes. And in foursome competition, that is very good scoring indeed.
So with 1 match remaining on Friday morning, the score was 2-1 in favor of Europe. At 17, Davis Love had this 10-footer to square the match with Harrington and Jimenez. And what a clutch putt it was, all square with 1 hole remaining. Harrington's fine drive left Jimenez an ideal angle and 151 yards to the pin. The man from Spain delivered. A marvelous shot under this kind of pressure, and his partner was both impressed and grateful.
Davis had also driven beautifully. This approach from Stewart from 143 yards. Another brilliant play. And it's down to the putting. First, Davis Love from 15 feet. The Americans couldn't believe it. So Harrington for the victory. The match couldn't get much closer than that. A half point going to each side. The morning score was Europe 2.5 points, the US 1.5.
I think this morning some of the new boys will be buoyed up. We no longer have 7 rookies. 3 of them scored point this morning, so I think it'll do the new boys some good.
One of the 5 charter members of the USGA, the Country Club, was founded in 1882 and has played a major part of golfing history for over a century. In 1913, it produced America's first bona fide golfing hero when Francis Ouimet, a 19-year-old who lived across the street from the club, outplayed Britain's 2 titans, Harry Vardon and Ted Ray, to win the U.S. Open Championship. In 1963, the 50th anniversary of Ouimet's victory was marked by the return of the Open, and it resulted in an 18-hole playoff between Julius Boros, Jackie Cupid, and Arnold Palmer. Cupid had the best chance to win in regulation, but the playoff belonged to Boros, who won the second of 2 U.S. Open championships. And Francis Ouimet was on hand for the presentation. Then in 1988, another playoff as Curtis Strange squared off against the reigning British Open champion Nick Faldo. But it was Curtis all the way, as putts like this took him to the first of his back-to-back U.S. Open championships. In all, 12 national championships have been played at the Country Club, and now the Ryder Cup as well. In the afternoon 4 balls, it was Parnevik and Garcia taking on Mickelson and Furyk. Montgomery and Laurie against Love and Leonard. Jose Maria Olazabal and Jimenez against Sutton and Maggart. And the final match, Westwood and Clark against Woods and Duval.
At the 3rd hole, although Garcia faced a completely blind approach to the 3rd green, he hit this beauty. And the Brookline gallery was duly impressed. His 19-year-old putting nerves had been rock solid all morning. And more of the same in the afternoon. That got the match back to all square. Amongst the onlookers, former President George Bush and Mrs. Bush. On the 3rd, Hal Sutton, inches from disaster after his approach, but almost a birdie. So this to save par and halve the hole. Thus far, Sutton had been the best clutch player on the American team. The drivable par 4, 6th hole. Phil Mickelson.
It's soft. Whoa.
Giving it a rip. He wants it to land softly. Over the back of the par 4. Parnevik's tee shot came up just a little bit short. The sand shot was a beauty. The hole would be halved in birdies and the match remained all square. And of course Sergio, delighted. Back in the anchor match, things were all even until this birdie putt by Darren Clark at the 3rd put Europe in front.
And so Europe kept the pressure on by taking the early lead in 2 of the 4-ball matches, with the other 2 all square. Davis Love can drive a ball very long, very high, and very straight. And he did all three with this tee shot at number 6. That almost slam dunked for a 1. And it gave even Davis the shivers. Thus, he was chipping back to the hole for eagle. But it never had a chance. Love would make birdie, but on this hole, that wasn't a winner, as Paul Lawrie played this fine explosion. And then hold the 6-footer to keep the match all square. Well, the Ryder Cup has a way of producing magic, according to Jesper Parnevik.
The crowd goes wild and the players go wild, and that's why I think you see, I mean, I've never seen a tournament where so many guys actually hold out from the middle of the fairway, or hold bunker shots, or hold chip shots. And I think it just, everything, the atmosphere just brings everyone to a new level. I mean, it's amazing how good of a golf everybody's playing.
And at the 8th, he proved his point with this 9-iron.
Good back.
Eagle 2. Incredibly, Jesper and Sergio were now 6 under par through 8 holes. And yet still just 1 up on Mickelson and Furyk in this, the best match of the day. Back at the 5th, Darren Clarke was in some deep rough. But the man from Northern Ireland handled it perfectly.
432 yards, the 5th hole. Heaving this one from the rough onto the very slopey green. An excellent shot. This match had seesawed back and forth in its early stages. Clarke stroked that home. Europe was back ahead. At the 8th, a difficult fairway bunker shot for Olazabal. But he's a superb iron player. A little short, but putting uphill. And of course, he's known for his beautiful putting touch. Spectacular birdie. However, from the very same line, Hal Sutton for a half. Hal's inspired play also helped rev up the Brookline gallery.
Back at the 8th, Tiger had this one from the fringe for birdie.
Let's go, baby.
And that is the kind of stuff everyone had expected from this young man who won 15 straight matches in U.S. amateur competition. But Darren Clarke had a chance to keep this battle even, and he showed some match play mettle of his own. Meanwhile, David Duval had been relatively quiet all day. But with this shot at the 9th, he started to make some noise. After 2 strong shots, Clarke had this chip for eagle. And what a shot. Clarke had been making clutch putts like this one all day long. And that was no exception. So this putt from Duval was to keep the match all square at the turn. So halfway through the 4 balls, it was Duval and Woods all square with Westwood and Clarke. Sutton and Maggart 2 down to Jimenez and Olazabal. Love and Leonard 1 up on Montgomery and Lawrie, and Mickelson and Furyk 1 down to Parnevik and Garcia. From position A on number 10, Tiger hit perhaps his worst shot of the day. And he knew he needed to get that swing back on track. Either that or summon up some Tiger Woods magic. And shots like that is what makes the Ryder Cup so special. Up at 11, Hal Sutton faced another pressure putt.
We feel pressure all the time if you're trying to be a great player, and I think that the Ryder Cup only escalates that pressure. We're playing as a team, we're playing, everybody's trying to help one another rather than beat one another, and we don't want to let the team down, we don't want to let our country down. It's the most pressure I've ever felt in a golf event.
Well, if this is the most pressure he's ever felt, he reacted very well on the 11th green. He's played in only 2 Ryder Cups, and on both occasions the US lost. So he came to Brookline on a mission. Europe 2 up through 10 holes. Jimenez, this for a par to stay 2 up. So he misses. Sutton's par good enough. The Spaniards lead only 1. Up at 13, Parnevik had a bit of scrambling to do. And he almost holed out again. Furyk also had missed the green. But he didn't miss the hole with this beautiful chip. Who can remember a day filled with so many dramatic and pivotal golf shots? And it's far from over. On the very next hole in the same match, Garcia's pitch for an eagle. Unbelievable. He and Parnevik were now a combined 9 under par, yet still only 1 up on Furyk and Mickelson. A great match. Aye, it was grand entertainment, laddie. At the 13th, the 2 Scots, 1 down, but Monty had a chance to even things up. He played pressure-proof golf all day. Never faltered. However, this man had been pretty tough as well. His second shot at the par 5 14th, up the hill. Certainly exerted some pressure. Super long iron.
But Paul Lawrie was equal to the challenge. And that a good example of the long iron play that took him to victory at Carnoustie. Love's putt for eagle. Big right to left break downhill. That was a tough act for Lawrie to follow. But somehow, unbelievably, he did. Matching eagles, and this still all square. So Europe held the edge in 2 matches, but it looked as if these 4 balls would all be coming down to the wire. In the day's hottest match, the Americans were 1 down when Mickelson played this tee shot to the 16th. And what a shot it was. This was to get things back to even with 2 to go. It never touched the hole. At the par 5 14th, Tiger hit the finest approach of the day. Everyone was in awe, including Michael Jordan. But Eagle would be needed to win this hole after Lee Westwood hit a glorious bunker shot to within gimme distance of the cup. So Tiger needed this one to put the Americans back in the lead. And that was a big missed opportunity.
Up ahead in the second match, things were still all square as Montgomery played his approach at the 17th. And once again, a great pressure shot from the Scot. Love in trouble. Assuming Monty would hold his putt for a birdie, a desperate effort of his own. But he'll settle for a par. This putt never in doubt. One up for Europe with one hole to play.
In the lead match, Parnevik and Garcia were still one up as Sergio approached the final green. It was no small achievement to clear the bunker and hold that green from the rough. And no one knew that better than Sergio. But once again, Mickelson had an answer. From nearly 40 feet on this sloping green, Sergio's birdie chances were slim. Mickelson's, however, as Crenshaw looked on, were very good. But he had missed a similar putt at the 16th. Could he convert now? And that was a defeat that had to be excruciating. And so the first point of the afternoon went to Europe, and the lead stretched to 3.
One hole down at the 18th after Monty's birdie at 17. Davis needed to attack, and he did just that. Over the front bunker. And his ball landed on the downslope. And went some 30 feet past. Comes back a little bit on the steep slope at the back of the 18th green. No one had birdied this hole all day. Until now. Beautiful birdie. Now it was up to Monty. He also a chance for a tying birdie. Not this time. And so a match that was dead even throughout almost the entire afternoon ended all square.
With a half point going to each team, the totals moved to 4-2 in favor of Europe. At the 17th, Olazabal faced this lengthy effort for birdie. But with his team 2 up, that putt didn't need to go in. This one, however, did. And with that miss, another victory for the Europeans. And now they had opened up a 3-point margin, with the final match coming down to the 18th, where Westwood needed to get up and down to clinch a victory over the 2 best players in the world. And with that beautifully played pitch shot, he did just that. What a huge victory it was for Europe. And as the sun set over the country club, it also seemed to be setting on the hopes of Team USA. With that upset, Europe took a commanding 6-2 lead after day 1.
However, the Americans have clearly dominated this competition that began in 1927 when seed merchant Samuel Ryder donated the trophy. first Ryder Cup was held in Worcester, Massachusetts, where a US team captained by Walter Hagen defeated Ted Ray's players from Great Britain. The Americans' first win on British soil came in 1937 at Southport and Ainsdale. The first tie came in 1969 at Royal Birkdale, where Jack Nicklaus and Tony Jacklin also halved the final singles match. But during the 70s and 80s, Nicklaus and Tom Watson led the US to 7 consecutive victories. In fact, through 1977, the US led in Ryder Cup victories by a margin of 19-3. But with the expansion of the British team to include players from continental Europe, the tide has changed. We've seen the emergence of talented players such as Italy's Costantino Rocca, whose hole-in-one here at Oak Hill in 1995 helped the team to victory. And of course, we've seen Seve Ballesteros lead the European side 8 times as a player and then 2 years ago at Valderrama as captain of the victorious squad. The Ryder Cup is now golf's biennial cliffhanger. Each year it comes down to the wire, and since 1983, the scoreboard shows 5 victories for Europe and 2 for the United States.
Hazy sunshine greeted the competitors for the morning foursomes on Saturday, where match number 1 put Montgomery and Laurie against Sutton and Maggart. Next came Clark and Westwood against Furyk and O'Meara. Jimenez and Harrington took on Woods and Pate, and it was the powerhouse team of Parnevik and Garcia in the final match against Stewart and Leonard. On Friday, no player had shown more consistency than Colin Montgomery, and he picked up right where he'd left off. This was his tee shot to a difficult pin at number 2. And so, with this putt by Paul Lawrie, the Scotsman drew first blood. But Tiger Woods came out firing after a mammoth drive. This was his approach to number 1. And that was a quick one-up for the Americans. Then, with a blind approach from the rough at the 451-yard third, he showed some more artistry, plus a bit of Garcia-like curiosity. That shot would put Tiger and Pate 3 up. A light rain began to fall, but it didn't seem to bother Lee Westwood as he stroked this one for birdie at the 6th.
The Europeans 1 down, so an important birdie. Mark O'Meara's putt was slightly shorter, so he needs this for the half to stay 1 up. It doesn't go. The match now all square. Also at the 6th, Jimenez. This the short par 4 he'd laid up. They needed to make up some ground. They were 3 down. And this shot by Miguel was a good start. Woods and Pate were in the hole with a par. So this for a win. No trouble for Harrington. Things were getting a little tighter.
Meanwhile, at the 7th, Parnevik needed this one to keep him and Sergio in front by 1. And the magic was still very much alive for this twosome. Threatening weather moved into the area and play was halted temporarily. Stewart and Leonard 1 down to Parnevik and Garcia. Woods and Pate 2 up on Jimenez and Harrington. Furyk and O'Meara 1 down to Clark and Westwood. Sutton and Maggart, Montgomery and Laurie all square. Well, rain or shine, the modern Ryder Cup has become something very special.
The Ryder Cup is not only the preeminent event in golf, but I think probably the most preeminent event in all of sport today. All of our members, every day, all 24,000 of them, work hard to make golf fun. The Ryder Cup is really a world event. We happen to be the custodians of a great event along with the European PGA. As you walk around the golf course, you hear different languages from different countries. You meet people from all over the world. You see flags being carried and enthusiasm in small groups and large groups. It just points to the fact that the Ryder Cup is a truly worldwide event. This year particularly, the Ryder Cup has grown in size that I'm sure Samuel Ryder could have never envisioned back in 1927.
He could never have envisioned the breadth of media attention either. The press corps at Brookline included over 1,000 journalists and photographers from newspapers, magazines, radio, and television, and their words and pictures were sent to 130 nations around the world. In America, NBC and USA Network carried a record number of televised hours of coverage. And what a show it was. When play resumed on Saturday morning, Europe began to take charge. At the 8th, Padraig Harrington needed this birdie putt to win a hole back from Woods and Pate.
The two Ryder Cup rookies had been 3 down after 3 holes. Now, after the 8th, only 1 down. Super comeback. Meanwhile, Parnevik and Garcia had made the turn at 2 up and were giving no ground for 2 days. Parnevik Garcia had combined beautifully. Garcia, power off the tee and a wonderful short game. Left to right for a birdie at the 10th. 3 up. Garcia, Parnevik, consistent brilliance. And Europe's number 1.
As good as you look.
Trying to please his partner, and he does. Lovely approach at the 15th. But Hal Sutton was not to be intimidated. Never more than 1 hole in this match. All the way. He likes it. Montgomery barely a foot from the hole. This putt had to drop for the half. Beautifully played by Maggott.
But now the Europeans were in command. Woods and Pate all square with Jimenez and Harrington. But Stewart and Leonard were 3 down to Parnevik and Garcia. Clark and Westwood 3 up on Furyk and O'Meara. Sutton and Maggott all square. Montgomery and Laurie. At 17, the Americans had a chance to go 1 up if Maggott could drill this one. That guaranteed Maggott and Sutton at least a half a point. Then Maggott closed the deal with this, the best shot of the week at the home hole. So Saturday's first point went to the United States, and the gap narrowed to 3.
Back at the 16th, Lee Westwood and Darren Clark were in firm control. 3 up with 3 to play. First Westwood's tee shot at the par 3. Protecting the lead well. Now or never for Furyk. He needs his putt to extend the match. So his hats off to Team Europe in match 2. 3-2 victory by Clark and Westwood. Europeans regained their 4-point lead. Jimenez. Things were all even in match 3 as Jimenez played his second shot. He's upset with the gallery. Fans at the country club this week were heavily pro-American, and on occasion they were more vocal than they should have been. Needs a good drive to reach this green in 2. Tiger Woods had given Steve Pate a great start. And Pate took full advantage. This then for an eagle. And a 1-up lead. No doubt at all. Just the kind of shot in the arm the American team needed.
And no one was more needy than Leonard and Stewart. The Europeans were dormy, 3 up with 3 to go, but there was still hope. This was to extend the match. But it was not to be, and the dynamic duo of Garcia and Parnevik register their 3rd straight victory. This time by a margin of 3-2, and Europe takes a commanding 8-3 lead. In the remaining match, the U.S. was still 1 up with only the last hole to be played. And that was not the best of efforts by Jimenez.
Jimenez had made a great first appearance as a Ryder Cup player, but not so good at the 18th this time.
Now, Peyton Woods had a great opportunity. If Steve could get this one out of the rough, over the bunker, and home safely. He did just that and more. This was a pairing that seemed to have some real chemistry. Realistically, Harrington needed to sink this one to salvage half a point.
Harrington, a feisty competitor, 3 Walker Cup matches he's played, loves the match play atmosphere. The shot was too difficult. Throughout his career, Tiger has had a penchant for sinking putts like this one on the 18th green. Not this time, but a par 4 was good enough to win the point for the United States. So with that victory, the morning foursomes were split, 2 points apiece, and Europe maintained its 4-point lead.
This afternoon, obviously, is very important to us. We need to continue to see some momentum and see the ball go in the cup. Again, these matches, I think everybody sees how close these matches are decided with that putter. I've said it, but that's match play. You've got to see that putt go down. But I think we're ready. Our team's sky high.
65 miles from Brookline Country Club, another transatlantic battle was being waged. The 3rd biennial Junior Ryder Cup took place at Cape Cod. 12 players to a team, just like their elder counterparts. This time it was 6 boys and 6 girls.
The players are extremely talented on both sides. You've got a young lady, Suzanne Peterson from Norway, who shot 69 today, first time she ever looked at the golf course. On the American side, you've got Hunter Mahan, who's the #1 ranked junior boy in the United States. These potentially are the stars of the future, and it'll be fun to look back and see where maybe it all started.
The European youngsters were even quicker on the draw than Jesse James's boys and had shot into a 5.5 to a half lead by the end of day 1. The final day brought a change in the weather, but no change in luck for the home team, with the Europeans feeling right at home in the wet and windy conditions. The final score was Europe 10.5, America 1.5. Triumphant visitors, another treat lay in store at Brookline, where they were greeted by a young man making something of an impact in the Ryder Cup proper, Sergio Garcia. And no doubt they're all hoping to follow in his footsteps.
In the 4-ball matches, it was Clark and Westwood against Mickelson and Lehman. Parnevik and Garcia against Love and Duval. The 2 Spaniards, Jimenez and Olazabal, against Leonard and Sutton, followed by Montgomery and Laurie, battling Peyton Woods. By afternoon, the skies had cleared, and there was plenty of good golf to see, beginning with this shot by Phil Mickelson at the 2nd. Mickelson had lost twice. He was hungry for victory.
Lovely approach shot at the tricky 3rd. He made a change of putters overnight. Remember the short putts he'd missed towards the end of his afternoon 4-ball on the first day. No problems now. Partner Lehman. Let me get that for you, partner. Americans 1 up. Back at the first, Davis Love had given himself an opportunity to strike quickly. And he did. US off to a fast start.
A very fast start. Steve Pate may have missed the green at number 1, but he didn't miss the hole. However, no one was getting too far ahead of Colin Montgomery, who responded with this shot at 3. This was the length of the putts he'd made throughout his first 3 matches, and Colin Montgomery was not letting up. Back to all square.
This is one of Montgomery's good putting weeks.
For the first time, Hal Sutton had a new partner, Justin Leonard. Jeff Maggart got a well-deserved rest. But Hal and Justin would have their hands full with the Spaniards. Birdie by Jimenez to square the match. The scoreboard, Peyton Woods all square with Montgomery and Laurie. Leonard and Sutton all square with Jimenez and Olazabal. Love and Duvall one up on Parnevik and Garcia. Mickelson and Lehman one up on Clark and Westwood. At number 8, Mickelson had another birdie opportunity. And that putter trade was looking better than ever. Certainly, Captain Crenshaw was pleased with what he saw, as was Phil's wife, Amy. Not to mention the American fans. Well, after 5 holes, Parnevik and Garcia found themselves in a rare position. 1 down. But that didn't last long.
Parnevik rams that putt home for a birdie. And that's all square. Up at the 9th, the American team needed this birdie putt to halve the hole and remain 2 up. And watch the Lehman reaction. You think maybe Tom Lehman wants to return the Ryder Cup to America? At the 8th, Garcia put his best swing and best body English on this approach. And it worked. An unlikely bounce out of the rough. He's already made more than his share of the putts. Automatic on the move before it hit the cup. 1 up for Garcia and Parnevik. Phil Mickelson, a huge drive at the par 4 10th. Just a wedge from 130 yards. 1 inch from perfection. He thought it was in. He couldn't see the ball behind the flag. The birdie was good enough for a 3-up lead.
Davis Love put his drive in a precarious position at number 9, but his next shot was as solid as a rock. The only challenge left was to keep his footing. Garcia's only chance was to hole out this shot. And what a half that would have been. Your eagle is good by me, amigo, said Sergio, and this match went all square at the turn.
At the next hole, David Duval. Watch the slope on this 10th green. A beautiful birdie. And more emotion from Duval than we usually see. Parnevik still to putt. This for a half in birdie 3s. Not this time. The Americans move one up. In the day's final match, Montgomery and Laurie were one down to Peyton Woods. Steve Pate had birdied the 6th and 7th holes for the one-up lead. Here's Monty's approach. He was waiting for a huge roar. He thought it was very close. Down the hill for the birdie. In it goes again, and the match is all square. Up at the 9th, the par 5, Justin Leonard did this one for his first birdie of the day to get a hole back from Olazabal and Jimenez. And the crowd gets going.
The scoreboard showed Leonard and Sutton one down to Jimenez and Olazabal. Peyton Woods all square with Montgomery and Laurie. Mickelson and Lehman 3 up on Clark and Westwood. And Love and Duvall 1 up on Parnevik and Garcia.
After winning the 11th with a birdie, Parnevik had this very difficult 4th shot at the horrid par 4 12th. This was for a half. Unbelievable. Sergio, where are you going? What a great team they made. An unlikely halve in par 4s at the 12th. Meanwhile, Monty in the middle of the fairway at the 10th. That's not unusual. Flag in the middle of the green. Remember Mickelson's second shot into the 10th? Score 1 for the Big Scot.
Meanwhile, out in the Boston Harbor, a glorious day for sailing. But back at the 16th, one of Europe's boats was about to sink, and Leslie Westwood could make birdie and extend the match. And that was quite an effort. So to 17 they went, with Captain Crenshaw watching closely. The Englishman had another opportunity to save his team, but this time couldn't do it. And so it was a 2-1 victory for Mickelson and Lehman. And the first of the Saturday 4 balls went to Team USA. The total scores were now 8 for Europe, 5 for the U.S.
At the 16th, Hal Sutton, his side 1 down. Watch this tee shot. His arm play always strong. This one almost a hole-in-one. He can tell it's a gimme. And the putt conceded. The birdie wins the hole. The match is now all square. Garcia and Parnevik had slipped to 1 down by the 18th. Sergio desperate for something to happen. Well, his idol Sevi would have been proud of that one. And he is really psyched up. 19 years old. So now the pressure on Davis Love. Trying to match the approach from Garcia. Oh, very good effort.
The vocal galleries, this was to win the match. And that suddenly quieted the crowd. So this putt for one extremely impressive halve.
Beautiful stroke again.
And so, with the half point going to each side, the team scores rose 8.5 and 5.5. Still 3 points apart. Two matches remained on the course, and in the first of them, the two Scotsmen held a 1-up lead. But when this shot came to rest, things were looking much more dire for the Americans. If there were any doubts about Paul Lawrie's abilities before this week, he has certainly laid them to rest. 2 up now with 2 to go. But no one on either side had played the foursomes and four balls more immaculately than Montgomery, who hit fairway after fairway and green after green, just like this. Tiger had hit an enormous drive, leaving little more than a pitch to the hole. He fired right at it. And that was a bit unlucky not to roll back to the hole. And so it was 10 feet downhill to extend the match. Tiger Woods loses for the 3rd time in 4 matches this week as the 2 Scotsmen score yet another point. And with their 2-1 victory, the team score becomes 9.5 to 5.5 in favor of Europe.
The last match on the course came to the 18th all square. Jimenez had missed this green in the morning, but much better this time. Fans supporting both teams. Al Sutton couldn't find the green with his second shot. This for a birdie 3. Almost. Crenshaw has been emotional for months, let alone just today. Well, the halve looked imminent. But still a chance for Jimenez. Almost. A hard-fought match that would end all square.
With that match, the Europeans had built themselves a lead that seemed insurmountable. In all of the Ryder Cup's glorious history, no team had ever come back from such a deficit. Captain Crenshaw, meanwhile, had a more mystical take on things.
I'm going to leave y'all on one thought, and I'm going to leave. I'm a big believer in fate. I have a good feeling about this. That's all I'm going to tell you.
No team had ever come from more than 2 points down to win the Ryder Cup. Crenshaw stacked his best players in the early matches in hopes of gaining an edge. Lehman against Westwood, Sutton against Clark, Mickelson against Sandiland, Love against Van de Velde, and Woods would take on another rookie, Coulthard, Duval and Parnevik, O'Meara against Harrington, Pate against Jimenez, Leonard would battle Olazabal, Stewart and Montgomery, Furyk against the 19-year-old Spaniard, Maggard and the British Open champion. The sun would surely need to shine on the American side if they were going to be victorious. And if this shot by Darren Clarke was any indication, that word fate was still very much in favor of Europe.
That put Darren Clarke 1 up on Sutton. At the very next hole, Sutton wasn't about to give up. Good tee shot into the heart of the par 3 green. Squares the match. Jarmo Sandelin. His first few holes as a Ryder Cup player, he'd not played on the first 2 days. Halved the first hole with Mickelson. This is tee shot at the second. And it's a beauty. A great chance to go 1 up. Usually a very safe putter. Well, peculiar acknowledgement of the crowds. Up ahead at number 4 in the lead match. Tom Lehman down the hill at the short par 4 fourth. At half the first 3 holes. Lehman starts his attack. A birdie and 1 up.
Back at the second, David Duval was about to follow that lead. That is the kind of iron play that has taken David Duval to the top of the game. This then to take charge of his match with Parnevik. Yes, and Duval was enjoying every moment of it. In match number 4, Davis Love and John Vandervelde, another Ryder Cup rookie, seeing his first action. All square until this. Suddenly, improbably, the United States was turning things around. For the Frenchman, this reversal of fortune may have caused some déjà vu, but he'd put his British Open experience in perspective.
Oh, I look at it as a positive. You know, it's never going to be. I'm never going to forget it. That's for sure. But you know, I'm never going to be sad about it. It's just two way of looking at it. You know, you can either look at it and say, you know, how could I do that? And then you better pack and do something else, or you better go and say, well, you know, it wasn't meant to be for me, and let's look at all the good things I did that week and see how I can move on from there.
And move on he did. This was to answer a birdie of Davis Love at the 6th, but the Frenchman still 1 down. Match number 7 brought together a pair of Irishmen in Harrington and O'Meara. Harrington seemed to be in charge after this birdie at the 5th. He went 1 up. Meanwhile, the US Open champion, second shot at the 3rd. Hitting the kind of shot you'd expect from the US Open champion, almost holding out for an eagle too. Montgomery on the green in 2, with Payne pretty sure of a birdie at the 3rd. Montgomery needed this downhill birdie try, and he makes it. They stay all square. At the 8th, Tiger Woods playing against Andrew Coulthard. Coulthard playing his first Ryder Cup match. And that really got things going. A shortish par 4, in trouble with his second, but he makes a birdie. And those roars could be heard throughout the course. Incredibly, the American players had taken the lead in the first 6 matches. Captain Crenshaw's parting words to the press on Saturday evening had assumed an air of prophecy. And of course, there will be some critical shots to be played in these last few matches. The United States was not about to let up. Davis Love, second shot to the 10th. This green slopes steeply from back to front. Beautiful approach. A little uphill, a little right to left. A formality. 3 up for Love over Jean Vandervelde.
Up ahead, Tom Lehman was also 3 up, about to go 4 up. And no one would be catching that man on Ryder Cup Sunday. No one. Back in match number 10, Colin Montgomery and Payne Stewart all square. This was a classic battle of ball strikers, and Colin keeping the pressure on. Payne Stewart was answering. And as the roars for his teammates echoed through the trees, he created a few cheers of his own. Montgomery was first to putt. And what a performance this man had staged. For 3 days, he had been the personification of courageous golf. Now it was Payne Stewart's turn. And this suddenly pivotal match had swung toward Europe. While up ahead, another big match was headed that way. Jose Maria Olazabal, 2 up on Justin Leonard. But the first point of the day was about to go to the United States. Davis Love had won holes 10, 11, and 12, only needing a 2-putt. With that, he closed out Jean van der Velde. So with that 6-5 victory, the score became 10-7 Europe. And moments later came point number 2 for the Americans. It was Lehman 3-2 over Westwood, and now the margin was only 2.
Meanwhile, at the 15th hole, Mickelson 4 up with 4 holes to play. When this shot hit the green, it meant his opponent, Jarmo Sandelin, would need a miracle. Sandelin and Mickelson had some history from a match previously played at the Dunhill Cup. But this match played in good spirit. Sandelin has to concede. A good win for Mickelson. In his 3 Ryder Cup appearances, Phil undefeated in singles play. More importantly, the USA had closed to within 1 point with Mickelson's win.
And up at 16, Hal Sutton was closing in on another American victory. With that shot safely on the green, his opponent, Darren Clarke, would need to chip in to have any chance of keeping the match alive. And when the ball went past the hole, his hopes passed with it. For Warhorse Hal Sutton, it was victory number 3 this week. And for the United States, it was point number 4 on a day that was becoming magical. Now the competition was dead even, and the final 8 matches would settle the score. Jim Furyk's battle with Sergio Garcia was all square until this.
Many had thought Furyk was the underdog in this match, but Garcia appeared to have burned himself out in the magical play with Parnevik. Not all of the Europeans were losing. In the final match, Paul Lawrie was 2 up on Jeff Maggott, and with that birdie at the 8th, went 3 up. Blue skies for the Americans. Back in match number 10, Montgomery and Stewart continue to battle. This for a par at the 10th. Made it look easy. To halve with 4s. Well holed by Stewart.
In the meantime, this putt was for yet another American point. And look at David Duval. The man who earlier in the year had referred to the Ryder Cup as an exhibition is now exhibiting all of the qualities of a man who has changed his mind. Duval's decisive victory, 5-4 over Parnevik, made it 5 points in a row for Team USA. And for the first time all week, the United States had taken the lead. Of the 7 remaining matches, Europe led in 3, the United States in 3, and 1 was all square. But the par 3 16th, Tiger ready to pounce. 3 holes up on Andrew Coulthard with 3 to play. Par was all Tiger needed. And when the ball found the green, par was all but assured. When Coulthard's birdie putt failed to fall, 3 feet separated the United States from its 6th consecutive point. Tiger's 3-2 victory over Coulthard put the United States in front by 2. Now all they needed was 2.5 of the remaining 6 points. And Jim Furyk was on a roll. He had won the 9th and 11th to move 2 up on Garcia. And that made it 3 up with 6 to play.
Meanwhile, at the 14th, Justin Leonard fighting back against Olazabal. This for a birdie at the 14th. Olazabal had bogeyed 12 and 13. 3 holes won in succession. He was only 1 down. This long putt at the 15th. 4 holes won in a row. The match all square. Winless at Valderrama, remember. Payne Stewart 2 down against Colin Montgomery. Payne had lost the 12th hole. But this is beautiful pitch at the par 5 14th. He would need that short putt for the win with a birdie 4. And now only 1 down with 4 to play. Up at the 17th, Steve Pate was about to give the US unanswered point number 7. What an incredible run for the US team. And the chants were getting louder and louder.
After the win by Pate, the scoreboard showed 13 points for the United States and 10 for Europe. The United States ahead in 1 match, Europe up in 2, and 2 matches all square. The United States needing another 1.5 to win the Cup. Both Montgomery and Stewart faced putts for par at 15, and this time Colin was unable to come through. The pressure was on, because earlier Payne Stewart had made this putt for par.
So Montgomery and Stewart all square with 3 to play. In match number 7, O'Meara and Podrick Harrington came to the 18th, also all square. But Mark O'Meara in trouble. Couldn't find the green from the sand. And Harrington had 2 putts to win the match. And finally, he put Europe on the scoreboard in the singles matches. A great win for the Ryder Cup rookie. The score had now become 13-11. The Americans still 2 points ahead. And this was point number 14 for the US. A convincing victory, 4-3. Jim Furyk beats Sergio Garcia. It had been a fantastic week for the 19-year-old, but he couldn't keep up with the steady Furyk in singles. It was point number 14 from the United States. The US now need only 1/2 a point to win the Ryder Cup. But with Paul Lawrie defeating Jeff Maggott, Europe need 2 points to tie the match and retain the cup.
And the 33rd Ryder Cup matches would come down to the 2 matches that were all square. One of them, Leonard Olazabal. They had reached 17. From the left rough, Olazabal played first, while contending with a less than courteous member of the gallery. Then it was Leonard's turn. He had scratched his way back. Now, could he climb out on top? For a moment, that looked perfect. But the result was a putt of more than 50 feet. Captain Ben Crenshaw had spoken of fate, of his good feeling about this day. And earlier in the week, he had expressed confidence that Justin Leonard would sink a big putt. Well, here it was, one big putt. The spontaneous celebration that followed was both premature and over the top, and it was surely disruptive to Olazabal, who faced a difficult assignment under even the best of circumstances. Eventually, order was restored.
So many people thought the Ryder Cup had already been decided by the magnificent Leonard putt. But that was not the case. Still a chance for Olazabal to prolong things. Justin Leonard 4 down with 7 holes to play. Now a chance to clinch the Ryder Cup for the United States. A siren in the distance. And the crowd did not appreciate Olazabal backing away from what is an extremely important putt. This putt to keep the European team's hope alive.
And with that putt, the United States is assured a half a point, the margin it needed to win the 33rd Ryder Cup. One more look at the putt heard round the world. And for Captain Ben Crenshaw, the historian of the game of golf, his team had made history of its own.
I've never seen such an indomitable spirit about these guys. They did not ever lose sight of what they were doing. They believed in themselves. They knew how close these matches were, despite some fantastic play by the Europeans. But today, I tell you, it's up in the trees. It's fate.
The American dream on Ryder Cup Sunday had also been Europe's nightmare. Captain Mark James's assessment.
I think we were outplayed. I don't think we were outmaneuvered. I think the way they played and the stuff that was flying into the hole from all angles, I don't think tactics would have made much difference. They came out screeching, and that's what you've got to do in this game. Ride the streak, and they rode a streak tremendously well today.
Call it spirit, call it fate, call it a miracle. One thing is certain. On Sunday afternoon of the 1999 Ryder Cup, the United States staged the comeback of the century.